When we talk about the AI era, our eyes immediately turn to the giants. NVIDIA designing chips, TSMC manufacturing them, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon building data centers. The entire world is pouring money into GPUs, servers, and cloud computing. But here's a shocking truth. All AI machines could grind to a halt without an unexpected company. Ajinomoto. Yes, that Ajinomoto. The Japanese corporation that started by inventing MSG monosodium glutamate. You heard that right. Without Ajinomoto, many high-performance chips would face critical stability problems. In other words, they've penetrated the deepest layers of the global technology industry. But how did a food company become indispensable to semiconductors? When people think of Ajinomoto, they usually picture a food company dominating the MSG market. That's not entirely wrong, but it's only part of the story. In 1908, Professor Kikune Ikeda isolated an amino acid from kelp seaweed, creating the distinctive umami flavor. Thanks to this historic invention, Ajinomoto became an international brand in less than a decade. But more importantly, during his research, Professor Ikeda understood a fundamental truth. Amino acids are the smallest building blocks of proteins, and proteins are the most essential nutrients forming the bodies of all living organisms. So Ajinomoto didn't stop at seasoning. Instead of taking profits from MSG and diving into real estate or finance like many other companies, they chose a much harder path, going deeper into amino acids, transforming themselves into a multidisciplinary research institute. Gradually, they mastered how amino acids impact human nutrition, animal feed, and even the biological structure of skin. From there, Ajinomoto developed 4 solutions: medical nutrition, animal feed, skincare active ingredients, and eventually advanced into high-performance chemical materials. These products might seem scattered, but they're all created by one core capability: controlling matter at the molecular level. And that exact expertise would pull them into a seemingly unrelated world, the world of polymers and electronic materials. Entering the 1980s and 1990s, to produce sophisticated seasonings and pharmaceuticals, Ajinomoto had researched and mastered various solvents and coating agents. The turning point came from a byproduct in the MSG production process: paraffin wax. Initially, it was noticed for its ability to soften plastics. But during research, they discovered this substance had extremely high insulating properties. At that time, the chip industry was facing a difficult problem. The common insulating material was liquid ink. However, at the microscopic level, liquid materials often left air bubbles or uneven surfaces when dried, causing short circuits or reduced chip performance. Not to mention, the process was time-consuming, released toxic gases, and harmed workers and the production environment. Knowing Ajinomoto owned excellent epoxy resin insulation technology, a major electronics company approached them for new insulating materials for chip substrates. They required it to be thin, durable, heat-resistant, and more stable than liquid ink. And the moment Ajinomoto had been waiting for had arrived. A young engineer was assigned this task. The characteristic Japanese perseverance kicked in. They worked day and night, going through countless rounds of testing and adjustment to fine-tune the molecular structure of this resin. In just 4 months, the mission was accomplished. Ajinomoto solved the problem with a Ajinomoto Build-up Film, a dry-form insulating film. Each layer is only about 10 micrometers thick, roughly 1/8 of a human hair, yet stable enough to separate circuit layers within a chip. Thanks to this, engineers could stack multiple circuit layers while still controlling electrical signals, avoiding interference and short circuits. Remarkably, this material is produced from the MSG manufacturing process and is environmentally friendly. In 1999, ABF was officially commercialized. From a side research branch, Ajinomoto had officially entered the chip industry. To understand ABF's importance, you must grasp a core principle. A chip needs a substrate layer good enough to transmit signals to the external circuit board. This layer must do three things simultaneously: insulate electricity, withstand heat, and maintain thousands of ultrafine connection lines without interference or breakage. Ajinomoto's ABF acts like an ultra-thin film. When pressed onto the chip substrate, the film flows like liquid cement into every crevice, sealing the chip surface without leaving voids or air bubbles. Remarkably, when exposed to heat, this film hardens. From a soft material that conforms to surfaces, it transforms into a solid, stable insulating layer. This is crucial because inside chips, electrical pathways sit extremely close together. If the insulating layer has even a tiny gap, electrical current can take the wrong path, causing interference, short circuits, or destroying the entire chip. But insulation isn't enough. A BF must also withstand heat. During operation, chips heat up rapidly, sometimes intensely. The problem is, a chip isn't made from a single material. Inside, there's silicon, copper, plastic, and many other material layers. Physically, each of these materials has completely different thermal expansion rates. Imagine a shirt sewn from different types of fabric. If each piece expands differently, the shirt will warp and tear at the seams. Chips are the same. If the insulating layer expands out of sync with copper or silicon, it creates pulling forces that tear the ultrafine connection wires inside, completely destroying the chip. To solve this complex puzzle, Ajinomoto's engineers didn't use pure epoxy resin because when plastic meets heat, it tends to expand more than silicon and copper. That tension would stretch, warp, crack, or break the ultrafine connections inside the chip. Instead, they mixed ultrafine inorganic particles into the plastic layer. Think of it like mixing sand and gravel into cement to create concrete. Cement alone shrinks and cracks easily, but with sand and gravel in the right ratio, the entire material becomes stable and less prone to deformation. Ajinomoto's ABF operates on the same principle. Inorganic particles like silica act as anchor points inside the epoxy layer. They restrain the plastic's excessive expansion, preventing the film from expanding or contracting too differently from silicon and copper. Ajinomoto chose a smart approach. Instead of eliminating heat, they adjusted how the material responds to heat. Thus, we can confirm, ABF didn't just improve one manufacturing step, it unlocked an entirely new development path for multi-layer, high-performance chips, especially CPUs, GPUs, and server chips. These chips need to continuously transmit data between the chip, memory, and external circuit boards. If the connection pathways underneath aren't good enough, the chip's power gets bottlenecked right at the exit. This is why Ajinomoto's ABF has become a lifeline material in high-tech industry. In the PC era, ABF was already crucial. But as the world enters AI, its role has escalated to another level. When AI exploded, the world needed high-performance chips that were more complex and consumed far more materials. A typical PC processor needs only about 6 layers of ABF, but for AI and high-performance computing chips, that number can jump to 18 layers. Instead of 3 layers on top and 3 on bottom, manufacturers now must stack 9 layers on top and 9 on bottom. It doesn't stop there. The substrate area of AI chips is also 3.5 times larger than traditional PC chips, meaning the surface requiring ABF coverage is much larger. In some cases, the amount of ABF consumed for one high-end processor can increase more than tenfold compared to ordinary chips. It's not just about quantity. The AI industry forces ABF to not stand still. It must continuously improve in quality. Challenge 1. Signal loss. Because AI chips process massive amounts of data, Electrical signals must run at extremely high speeds. When transmission speed increases, insulating materials cannot afford to lose too much energy along the way. Imagine if the signal is a stream of water. The substrate material must be a perfectly smooth pipe. The rougher the pipe, the more water is lost. With the AI chips, signals run so fast that even a small loss can affect performance. Therefore, Ajinomoto's new generation of BF materials must reduce dielectric loss. Challenge 2. Warping and cracking. AI chips are typically larger than ordinary chips. The larger the substrate and the more layers, the higher the risk of warping. Therefore, a BF used for AI chips must be continuously refined to resist cracking and better control warpage. Challenge 3. Circuit line fineness. The more powerful the chip, the smaller, denser, and more precise the copper lines inside the substrate must be. This requires a BF to have surface quality and material properties good enough to withstand extremely fine processing. Therefore, in the AI era, ABF is being pushed on both quantity and quality. It must be stable, thin, heat-resistant, have low signal loss, and be compatible with finer circuit lines. The story doesn't stop at surging demand. The scary part is that Ajinomoto's product still maintains a dominant position. In this market, they control up to 95% market share. This demand has created heat in the supply chain. Corporations like Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, Apple, and Samsung all need a BF substrates for high-performance chips. But production capacity for this substrate cannot increase overnight. Therefore, tech giants must compete to secure production capacity support from a BF substrate suppliers. As for Ajinomoto, this is the moment a BF enters a new growth cycle. Facing surging demand from AI and HPC, the company has announced a $165 million investment plan to increase a BF production by 1.5 times by 2030. Thus, Ajinomoto no longer views a BF as a side branch alongside food. In the AI era, it has become a strategic product. Because the potential is so enormous, a BF immediately became a juicy target. Japanese, Taiwanese, and Chinese companies all want to enter the market. Some Chinese names have appeared in the list of companies participating in the ABF market. But being present in the market doesn't mean replacing Ajinomoto in the high-end segment. ABF isn't like a commodity component. It's an artificial material with a complex molecular structure that never existed on Earth before Ajinomoto created it. ABF is made by combining epoxy resin, hardening agents, and ultrafine inorganic particles in an extremely precise formula. Ajinomoto themselves say, the hardest part is how to evenly mix organic and inorganic substances that don't easily blend together. That's understandable. ABF is like a material that must be both soft and hard enough. When pressed onto the chip substrate, it must be soft enough to fill tiny gaps in the copper wire network. After heat treatment, it must harden into a solid insulating layer. And when the chip heats up, it must not expand too differently from silicon and copper. When manufacturers use lasers or etching, it must maintain a surface standard precise enough to create ultra-fine circuit lines. Deviate from even one of these conditions, and the chip can fail. Ajinomoto's decades of accumulated experience and material science knowledge is why China hasn't been able to surpass them. Not to mention, each type of a BF used for different chip lines has completely different specifications. Ajinomoto says their standard BF line has increased to about 7 or 8 types, because each system needs its own optimization. This makes it even harder for new competitors to enter. China can produce substitute materials at certain levels, but in terms of stability and reliability, it's very difficult to surpass Japanese scientists. While Chinese BF is still struggling to enter the race, Japan isn't resting on its laurels. Ajinomoto understands that today's dominant position doesn't guarantee tomorrow's power. Therefore, They continue using their amino acid science platform to research new materials for the future, specifically magnetic materials, photosensitive materials, and optical wave materials. This is also the evolution direction of the chip industry. The future of technology will lie in self-driving cars, automated factories, smart cities, and high-speed communication networks. These systems require solutions that are more stable and consume less energy. Therefore, Ajinomoto continues sprinting in a new race. In today's technological geopolitical landscape, each country's role seems fairly clear. The US leads chip design, computing architecture, and algorithms. Taiwan operates the world's most advanced fabrication foundries. South Korea plays a major role in memory. China is pouring resources to achieve supply chain self-sufficiency. Beside these prominent parts, Japan, though quiet, holds the submerged portion of the iceberg. A thin film made from ultra-pure materials with precision down to thousandths of a micrometer. Yet also one of the hardest things to replace in an era where every nation wants semiconductor self-reliance. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't designing a new chip. It's making a material so thin it's invisible, clean enough, durable enough, precise enough, and reliable enough that the entire technology industry must place its future upon it.